Good afternoon and welcome to our regular board meeting. I will now go ahead and call this meeting to order. It is Tuesday, July 20th. It is 5:02 p.m. and we will go ahead and get our meeting started. Just want to welcome all of my board colleagues that are with us. Mr. Goheen, want to welcome Dr. Stubblefield as she's sitting on her first official regular board meeting. So welcome, Dr. Stubblefield, and to all of our staff that are joining us today as well. Thank you for being with us. To any guests that we have with us, thank you for joining us. And for those watching via Zoom or on YouTube, thank you for joining us today as well. Just a quick reminder, if you are on Zoom, staff or anyone attending, please make sure you mute your mics and also turn your video off. That will help with the bandwidth for the evening. So thank you. So with that, we will go ahead and do a roll call. Ms. Smith, would you please do a roll call?
Yolanda Clark.
Yolanda Clark, present.
Maxine Drew.
Maxine Drew, present.
Janie Humphreys.
Janie Humphreys, present.
Randy Lopez.
Randy Lopez, present.
Wanda Brownlee Page.
Wanda Brownlee Page, present.
Dr. Wynn.
Dr. Wynn, present.
Dr. Yeager.
All right. And before I get to the approval of the agenda, I'm sorry, I'll read our board norms and protocols as we do at every meeting. As a board, we agree to respect the differences of opinions in making decisions for the district, to follow best practices in managing the superintendent and the management of the board itself, to stay on task when conducting business for the district, including while at board meetings, to never surprise the superintendent or each other when conducting official business of the district, to read these norms at the beginning of each board meeting and at board workshops as a reminder of how to conduct our meetings, and to continually self-check to determine if we are following our norms when conducting district business. Thank you. I would now entertain a motion to approve today's regular agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Ms. Smith?
Yolanda Clark.
Yolanda Clark, yes.
Maxine Drew.
Maxine Drew, yes.
Janie Humphreys.
Janie Humphreys, yes.
Randy Lopez.
Randy Lopez, yes.
Wanda Brownlee Page.
Wanda Brownlee Page, yes.
Dr. Wynn.
Dr. Wynn, yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Would now entertain a motion to adjourn to sine die. Sine die. Thank you, Dr. Wynn.
So moved. Second.
Ms. Smith, roll call, please.
Yolanda Clark.
Yolanda Clark, yes.
Maxine Drew.
Maxine Drew, yes.
Janie Humphreys.
Janie Humphreys, yes.
Randy Lopez.
Randy Lopez, yes.
Wanda Brownlee Page.
Wanda Brownlee Page, yes.
Dr. Wynn.
Dr. Wynn, yes.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. I will now hand the meeting over to Dr. Stubblefield.
Good evening, and it's great to see everyone and be here for my first official meeting in person. The first item on the agenda is the election of the board president. So I will now open it for nominations for the board president.
I nominate Randy Lopez for president of the board of USD 500.
Second.
Okay, Randy Lopez is nominated. Are there any other nominations? If not, we'll go ahead and take a vote. Ms. Smith, can you do a roll call vote?
Yolanda Clark.
Yolanda Clark, yes.
Maxine Drew.
Maxine Drew, yes.
Janie Humphreys.
Janie Humphreys, yes.
Randy Lopez.
Randy Lopez, yes.
Wanda Brownlee Page.
Wanda Brownlee Page, yes.
Dr. Wynn.
Dr. Wynn, yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, and I will now turn it back over to Mr. Lopez.
Thank you, Dr. Stubblefield, and thank you,
And
board.
congratulations, sorry.
Thank you, thank you, thank you, board. So we will continue on with our agenda, and it's great to continue to be able to serve with you alongside you as we start this next academic year. So thank you for all your support, for all the work that this board and staff have continued to do to support our students and families. So now I would call for nominations for Vice President.
Mr. President.
Wanda Brownlee Page, Vice President.
Okay, so we have nomination for Ms. Brownlee Page.
Mr. President, I nominate Yolanda Clark for vice president.
We have a nomination for Ms. Yolanda Clark.
I would like to make a nomination for Maxine Drew.
We have a nomination for Ms. Drew. Other nominations? If not, I will just go in alphabetical order. And we have up, well, I'll go with nominations first, I'm sorry. So Dr. Nguyen nominated Ms. Page. Is there a second for Ms. Page?
I'll second myself.
Second? Okay. Ms. Smith, roll call for Ms. Page.
Who was at the second? I didn't,
Ms. Page.
Ms. Page, okay. Thank you. Yolanda Clark?
Yolanda Clark, no.
I couldn't hear you.
No.
Maxine Drew?
Maxine Drew, no.
Janie Humphries?
Janie Humphries, no.
Randy Lopez?
Randy Lopez, yes.
Wanda Brownlee Page?
Wanda Brownlee Page, yes.
Dr. Nguyen?
Dr. Nguyen, yes.
Dr. Yeager?
No.
All right, thank you. So that was 4 against, so we will go to the next nomination, which was Miss Yolanda Clark. Is there a second for Miss Yolanda Clark?
I seconded.
It's been moved and seconded. Ms. Smith?
Yolanda Clark?
Yolanda Clark, yes.
Maxine Drew?
Maxine Drew, yes.
Janie Humphries?
Janie Humphries, yes.
Randy Lopez?
Randy Lopez, yes.
Wanda Brownlee Page?
Wanda Brownlee Page, no.
Dr. Nguyen?
Dr. Nguyen, no.
Dr. Yeager?
Yes.
Okay. So that is 5 yeses. So Ms. Clark has been elected as the board vice president. Congratulations, Ms. Clark. You can stay there. She's sitting there. She's there. Yeah, I think that's fine. Okay. Thank you. Congratulations, Ms. Clark. And I just want to say thank you to Ms. Page for this year of serving together. I learned a ton from Ms. Page and her leadership and her experience, and it was very valuable to have her guiding in co-leading this board in this district. So thank you, Ms. Page, for your work, and we look forward to continuing serving together.
And, Mr. President, I do apologize on my absence, but I do support you as president.
Thank you, Dr. Yeager, and it's great to see you and have you back today. It's wonderful to see you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. So next up, there is a resolution on the agenda.
Board appointment positions.
Skip number
C.
Okay. I think that's in the resolution that covers all of those.
C.
Is that not included in the resolution? I thought.
Oh.
Generally, we change positions to where people are sitting that are president and vice president, so they sit next to each
We
other.
don't worry about that. No. We'll do that later.
I thought the resolution does have the position.
It does.
So we'll just do the one resolution for all of those, right?
You can.
Okay.
So you may say it's a change from past practice.
Okay, yeah, so this year, we do have one resolution that covers all of those items under the reorg of the board, which includes the annual appointment of board positions, the official meeting time and place, and all the others. If you click on letter E and pull up the resolution that's attached, you'll see all of those items in the one resolution.
Recording in progress.
Sorry.
So I would entertain a motion to adopt the following resolution. Mr. Goheen, do I need to name each of the items that is covered in the resolution, or can we just adopt the resolution as is written?
You can adopt the resolution as written. I just want to make sure, it's a written resolution, so you can adopt the resolution. It'll be part of the board minutes once it's approved, so that would be sufficient. If you prefer to read it, or if somebody wants to read it, you could do that as well.
Okay, thank you. Is there a motion to adopt the resolution as written, as presented?
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any questions or discussion? If not, Ms. Smith, roll call, please.
Yolanda Clark,
Yolanda Clark, yes.
Maxine Drew,
Maxine Drew, yes.
Janie Humphries,
Janie Humphries, yes.
Randy Lopez,
Randy Lopez, yes.
Wanda Brownlee Page,
Wanda Brownlee Page, yes.
Dr. Nguyen,
Dr. Nguyen, yes.
Dr. Yeager.
Dr. Yeager, yes.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. Now entertain a motion to come out of sine die and return to public session.
So moved.
Second.
Ms. Smith?
Yolanda Clark,
Yolanda Clark, yes.
Maxine Drew,
Maxine Drew, yes.
Janie Humphries,
Janie Humphries, yes.
Randy Lopez,
Randy Lopez, yes.
Wanda Brownlee Page,
Wanda Brownlee Page, yes.
Dr. Nguyen,
Dr. Nguyen, yes.
Dr. Yeager.
Dr. Yeager, yes.
Thank you. So we are now back in open session, and we will continue with our agenda. We have our community comment section. As a reminder for those that are not in attendance today that are watching via Zoom or YouTube, you are welcome to submit comment. Please contact our board clerk, Ms. Leslie Smith, and no later than Monday at noon, the day before the board meeting. So the Monday before the board meeting to submit your written comment, and then we will give you further instruction on how you will proceed at the board meeting. So, Ms. Smith, it looks like we've got a couple of comments. I will recognize Mr. Merle Bland, who is joining us today in person. Mr. Bland, you have 3 minutes, and we welcome you. Thank you for joining us, and happy to hear from you.
President Lopez, members of the Kansas City, Kansas Board of Education, Dr. Stubblefield, other staff members, ladies and gentlemen, I will be brief and to the point. I am Merle Bland. I live at 8311 Garfield Avenue, Kansas City, Kansas. I speak this afternoon on behalf of Business West, as I have done for more than 10 years. Business West is a voluntary association with about 70 members, mostly small businesses. Property taxes are a serious concern, and most of our members, particularly those wishing to expand. Although western Wyandotte County is seeing considerable construction activity, much of this is coming about because of tax incentives. If there is to be ancillary development, property taxes must be reasonable. The solution for a more viable economy is to increase the tax base, not to increase taxes. Thank you for your consideration. I'd be happy to respond to any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Bland. No questions. So we will have one of our staff members follow up with you. Chief of Staff, Mr. Linkus, if you would please follow up with Mr. Bland for any further comment or question. Thank you, sir, for joining us tonight. We appreciate your comments and
Thank
information.
you for having me.
Next on our agenda, we do have another comment from Tyler Cisco. Is Tyler Cisco joining us?
I'm here via Zoom.
Thank you. Welcome.
Hello. Thank you for having me. My name is Tyler Cisco. I'm a resident of Wyandotte County, voting constituent, and high school teacher in this district. I have been watching the negotiations meetings this year between the school district and NEA and am frustrated by much of what I see. At the last meeting on June 28th, there were no board members present. The district representatives failed to provide all the data requested by the negotiations team in March. Also at that last meeting, the negotiations team presented data comparing our salary schedule to many surrounding districts. District representatives dismissed this, saying USD 500 cannot control what other districts do. That comment is what led me to write this letter. If you decide not to react to changes in the job market, we will continue to lose valuable, experienced educators. Since nobody from the board attended the June 28th meeting, I would like to share some data with you today. With the help of one of my brilliant colleagues from my high school, we have analyzed data from our school specifically. We compared staff lists from June 2021 and May 2017 and discovered this. 51 people from that May 2017 staff list no longer work at my school. Of that 51, 5 retired, 6 moved to other schools in the district, and 40 have left the district entirely. That turnover number does not include the numerous people who were hired after 2017 and have already left. Currently, 2/3 of the educators at my school have fewer than 5 years of experience. Only 10% had more than 15 years of experience. I'm not citing these numbers in an attempt to disparage people for their inexperience. In fact, I just recently finished only my 3rd year. However, losing experienced staff is a major issue. It puts more work on human resources to keep finding new candidates. There's an institutional knowledge that experienced educators bring, which cannot be measured on a salary schedule, and that consistency is important to students too. I once had a group of high school juniors cry in my class because they heard a rumor that I was not returning the next year. If we ever want to achieve the excellence we aspire to, we must have enough experienced educators to mentor and support our new staff each year. Please listen to the well-researched, data-driven recommendations from the district in E18, or the situation will only worsen. They have done their homework when it comes to these proposals, and if you're questioning their data, you can look for yourself with just a few quick Google searches. Many school districts have their salary schedules online, just like we do. I understand your job requires difficult decisions, and at times you may feel like all we do is complain. Please know that I watch every board meeting and see the good work you do here. However, I am tired of seeing my colleagues leave year after year to work in districts that pay better and have more consistent and organized leadership at the district level. I hope that with our new leadership from Dr. Stubblefield, we can make this district a place where teachers stay. It's what our students deserve. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Cisco, for joining us tonight and for your comments. And the same, we will have Mr. Linkus follow up with you if there are additional questions or comments from you. Thank you so much for joining us. So that ends our community comment section tonight. Again, as a reminder, you can always submit comment for the board meetings. Please contact Ms. Leslie Smith. So next we have our award section. I will hand it off to Dr. Stubblefield.
And at this time, I'll turn it over to Edwin Birch to share some news about the communications department.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Good evening.
To Randy Lopez, Board President, Dr. Anna Stubblefield, and fellow board members. It is a pleasure to share with all of you today that the National School Public Relations Association, also known as NSPRA, recently announced the recipients of this year's 2021 National School Communications Awards. Your Marketing and Communications Department is a recipient of a total of 9 awards in publications and digital media excellence. The contest, there were several categories, and we received outstanding education publications, marketing materials, podcasting, videos, and social media. The district received 4 awards of excellence, which is the highest recognition, 4 awards of merit, which is the second level of recognition, and an honorable mention, the 3rd place level of recognition. One of the awards I want to share with you is that we submitted was in partnership with our Human Resources Department. And I wanted to acknowledge them also for a job well done and our continued partnership. Now, I won't name all of the individual awards, but I think you have a list of those that we shared with all of you earlier. But this is something that I think we all can be proud of as we continue to work hard to improve our communications efforts. Again, on behalf of myself and your entire communications team, which consists of Sharia Hutton, Michael Keener, Christopher Jackson, who's here today, Cameron Porter, and Sarah Thacker, who is also here. We want to thank all of you for your continued support, and we will continue to work hard to enhance and improve our communications efforts.
Congratulations. Thank you. Congratulations, Mr. Birch and the entire team. We know you've been working super hard this past year, every year, but this year in particular with all the needs and concerns and questions and everything we've had going on, communications has been so critical. So we really appreciate you and your team.
We actually do not have, Jody is not here, correct? No. So they did not have an employee of the month for this month because of the vacations. So
Everyone is an employee of the month this month.
That's right.
We love you all and thank you for all the work that you have done. So congratulate yourselves. You are all employees of the month.
Thank you.
So next we will hear from our Kansas City, Kansas Public Libraries report. We have Ms. Carol Levers who will join us.
Good evening and congratulations, Mr. President.
Good evening.
Good evening, Board.
Good evening.
Welcome and nice meeting you, Dr. Stubblefield. On behalf of the Kansas City, Kansas Public Library, I wish you all the best.
Thank you.
Tonight, I have invited one of my staff people, Miss Ann Lacey. Miss Lacey is the Kansas Room librarian, and we have some good news to share with you, and I thought she will be the best person in case you have any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Carol, and I want to thank the board for allowing me the time to come and speak about an exciting project that we have happening at the library right now. The William E. Connolly Collection Digitization Project. Since it started this month in July, since the Carnegie Library days, the Kansas City, Kansas Public Library has collected Kansas history materials, and the Kansas Room is home to our local history special collections. Detailing the early days of the Wyandotte tribe in Kansas and the area that would become Wyandotte County, the William E. Connolly Collection of Wyandotte Historical Documents is by far the most important manuscript collection in the Kansas Room. And this is a picture of Mr. Connolly here. He was an educator, a banker, and a real estate man who represented the Wyandotte Nation in the planned sale of the Huron Cemetery in the late 19th century. And in 1912, he became the president of the Kansas Historical Society. Mr. Connolly wrote extensively about the history of Kansas and Kansas Native people, and he collected over his career thousands of pages of letters and documents to support his research and writings. He died in 1930, and in 1935, the school board purchased Connolly's Wyandotte papers for the library's collection. And you can see here, this is the cemetery and a clipping from the Kansas City Kansan in 1935 about the purchase of the collection. The collection includes approximately 8,000 pages of primary source documents, including photographs, maps, manuscripts, books, government documents, newspaper clippings, and journals. And I wanted to highlight a few of the highlights from the collection. This is a letter from William Walker, who is the principal chief of the Wyandotte Nation, and he writes a letter in 1843 back to his mother in Upper Sandusky, Ohio, talking about the difficult conditions that the Wyandotte people faced as they settled in their new lands. And this is, the other image is a tintype portrait of Nancy Quindaro Brown Guthrie, who was the daughter of Chief Adam Brown and the namesake of the Quindaro Township. And as far as I know, this is the only photograph of her in existence. And this is one of the most important items from the collection. It is a handwritten Wyandotte English language dictionary written by Connolly himself. He studied the Wyandotte language, and it's thought to be the most complete record of the Wyandotte language in existence. So researchers from all over the country are interested in using the collection, but right now they currently have to come to Kansas City to do so. And because the collection is so historically important, the library was approached in 2017 by Dr. Robert Wicks at Miami University in Oxford, Ohio, to contribute to an online database of Wyandotte historical materials and documents that will be accessible to scholars, researchers, and tribal citizens. Dr. Wicks has studied and written about 19th century Wyandotte history, and he saw a need for better access to historical collections. The goal of this database, which is called the Wyandotte Heritage Digital Archive, is to bring together Wyandotte materials held in institutions all over the country in one easily searchable database. Dr. Wicks has partnered with the Wyandotte Nation in Oklahoma to work on this project. Many documents related to Wyandotte history are held in non-native collections, and the Wyandotte Nation is very interested in digitizing them to create better access for tribal members and to celebrate Wyandotte history and culture. Digitizing the Connolly collection has long been a goal of the library, but there has never been the staff or the resources available to do this project. So the Wyandotte Nation applied for and received a grant from the Native American Native Hawaiian Museum Services Program at the Institute of Museum and Library Services for $78,000 to provide staff and funding to digitize the collection. And actually, we just found out yesterday that IMLS contributed extra money, bringing the total now to $86,000. The funds will cover 2 part-time contract positions to scan and catalog every item in the collection, administration of the project in Wyandotte, Oklahoma, and project staff travel. Grant money will also be used to purchase archival folders and storage boxes for the collection, as well as external hard drives to back up all of the digital files in Kansas City and in Wyandotte, Oklahoma. The project director in Wyandotte is Kim Garcia, the Cultural Preservation Officer for the Wyandotte Nation, and I will be supervising the project at the library. The 2 grant-funded digitization specialists will work in the Kansas room to conduct a full inventory of the collection. This hasn't been done since the 1990s, and it will give us a complete picture of what is held in the collection. They'll rehouse all items in archival storage. Right now, some of the items are stored in office folders, so this will make sure that it preserves. It's key to preservation of the collection. They will digitize all 8,000 pages in the collection using the library's Book Eye scanner. And this is a picture of the Kansas room at the main library and the scanner that we'll be using to do the project. And it will they will create descriptive metadata for each item, making them keyword searchable in the database. And the last step will be for the digitization specialist to upload all of the digital files into the Omeka database, creating the Wyandotte Heritage Digital Archive website, which is pictured here. This is what it looks like right now. It will be fully searchable and accessible anytime from anywhere in the world. Once the Conley collection items are digitized and entered into the database, Wyandotte tribal members can then add family histories and biographical information to create a richer picture of Wyandotte cultural heritage. And this project is significant because it makes the collection accessible to Wyandotte people all over the world. It will provide access to historical knowledge for teaching and lifelong learning. It'll preserve the collection by creating digital surrogates of the fragile 19th century documents, so it will be no longer necessary to handle the originals. And it can be a model for future American Indian and First Nations digitization projects. Dr. Wicks hopes to partner with other libraries and archives around the country that hold Wyandotte materials in their collection. And the library is thrilled to be partnering with the Wyandotte Nation and with Dr. Wicks on this important project. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Dr. Nguyen.
Thank you, Mr. Lopez, and thank you. So help me remember what you said. Where will the originals be?
They are held at the library, and they will stay at the library.
They will stay
Yes.
there.
Mhm.
The Kansas Historical Society has not made a request to have them deposited there?
No, they have their own collection of Conley materials. So he had a massive collection that was divided between libraries around the country, and Kansas Historical Society does have Conley papers, just not the Wyandotte papers.
So will there be any cross-reference of their data with
I
our
think
data?
that's Dr. Wick's plan, is to eventually digitize the Kansas State Historical Society papers as well. So everything related to Wyandotte history that can be will be digitized and entered in this database.
Okay. Have those conversations started, to your knowledge?
I know that Dr. Wicks has approached a number of libraries around the country.
No, I'm sorry.
Oh, with the
particularly
Kansas.
Kansas.
I think he has reached out to him. I don't know how far those conversations have gone.
Okay, thank
Yeah.
you.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Nguyen. Any further questions? No? Thank you so much for the information. All right. So we will continue with our agenda. Next, we have from Dr. Stubblefield, Communications?
We have
Or
to
do you accept
accept
the reports of the library? Is there a
So moved.
motion to accept the reports?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Thank you. Ms. Smith?
Yolanda Clark,
Yolanda Clark, yes.
Maxine Drew,
Maxine Drew, yes.
Janie Humphries,
Jenny Humphries, yes.
Randy Lopez,
Randy Lopez, yes.
Wanda Brownlee Page,
Wanda Brownlee Page, yes.
Dr. Nguyen,
Dr. Nguyen, yes.
Dr. Yeager.
Dr. Yeager, yes. I
Thank
would
you.
also like the motion to accept the director's report on the Kansas City, Kansas Public Libraries.
There's
Oh,
the
oh,
Turner
sorry,
report.
The Turner report, library quarterly report.
Is there a second?
I second it.
Moved and seconded. Ms. Smith?
Yolanda Clark,
Yolanda Clark, yes.
Maxine Drew,
Maxine Drew, yes.
Janie Humphries,
Jenny Humphries, yes.
Randy Lopez,
Randy Lopez, yes.
Wanda Brownlee Page,
Wanda Brownlee Page, yes.
Dr. Nguyen,
Dr. Nguyen, yes.
Dr. Yeager.
Dr. Yeager, yes.
Thank you so much. Motion passes. Now, we will hear from Dr. Stubblefield.
Okay, good evening. I do have just a few items. First, again, I want to say thank you to the board for entrusting me in this position to lead the district to the outcomes that we have expressed about becoming a top 10 district in the country. And I appreciate all the support that the board, staff, and community members have shown to me thus far. And I look forward to working with everyone and building bridges where trust has been broken and reestablishing relationships with those that we may have lost connection with, and working with those who have stayed steady with us over the years. So I'm excited about working to move the district forward. The first thing I want to say is I, again, want to say I'm proud to announce the hiring of our new Associate Superintendent of Leading and Learning, Dr. Judith Campbell. She will officially begin her first day on August 2nd. We have been in communication with her and providing as much support during this transition time, but I'm excited about her joining our team and leading our departments in a variety of areas. I also wanted to just give an update around the letters training. As you remember, Matt Anderson and Darcy Swan and that team is coordinating letters training for the board, for our students. And they have been we were identified by the state as the district who would benefit from letters training and one of the first districts to be identified, but I do think the state has expanded it to almost any district, but we were one of the first. And just a reminder, Letters is a professional development course that bridges deep, meaningful research into practical classroom success. Letters provides educators with the background, depth of knowledge, and tools to teach language and literacy skills to every student. And Letters can be used regardless of the literacy program in use. The state will be paying for all of our teachers, I believe pre-K through second grade, and then they've also added special ed and ESL teachers, and we will make sure that our entire elementary teachers K through 5 receive the training. We're in the process of coordinating the dates. We believe that we will be able to start the training in September or October, but we have to coordinate with the trainers and make sure that we can do it during our Wednesdays and professional development. So we'll provide more details around that as we solidify it with the trainers. Just a reminder to everyone that we have an upcoming vaccination event. KCKPS and Unified Government of Wyandotte County Public Health Department is reminding you to don't throw away your shot due to the great turnout during our past 2 COVID-19 events. KCKPS is happy to bring this Family Fun community event back one more time. The next COVID-19 event will take place at J.C. Harmon High School, located at 2400 Steele Road on Tuesday, July 27th from 5 to 8 p.m. The health department will offer the Pfizer vaccine 2 doses and Johnson & Johnson vaccine 1 dose. Remember, the vaccine is safe for those 12 and up, but minors under 18 must be accompanied by a parent or guardian. Those that get vaccinated will receive a free meal vouchers for the food truck on site. Not only that, but you can get signed up to win one of the cash prizes that values the total of $1,500. Teens getting the vaccine will walk away with prizes on the spot. I also want to say congratulations to our recent retirees. After closing out the 2021 school year, KCKPS had roughly 80 staff members retire. Between these 80 staff members, there was a total of 1,701 combined years dedicated to the district. We wish our retirees well as they begin their new chapter in their life. Another upcoming announcement, KCKPS is hosting a career fair. The Kansas City, Kansas Public Schools District is looking for outstanding individuals to join our team. Our recruitment department will be hosting 2 career fairs in the community in the coming days. The first will be July 21st, that's tomorrow, at Rosedale Middle School from 3:30 to 6:30. And then also July 28th at Gloria Willis Middle School from 3:30 to 6:30. You can visit our website for more information about both of those fairs, and we are looking for both certified and classified individuals who may be interested in joining our district. And finally, I just want to say preschool enrollment is now open. We want parents to know that now is the time to enroll your child in preschool if you haven't already done so. You can call the district office at 913-627-5257 or send an email to apply and visit our website for more information. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Dr. Stubblefield. Lots of great things going on. Ms.
Mr.
Page?
Yeah, Mr. Lopez, Dr. Stubblefield, for the letters training, how many years is that program?
Because it'll take 2 years to provide the training. And as the teachers are trained, there'll be things that they can actually take back to the classroom, but it's over 2 years. Yeah.
And then my second question, in regard to the COVID-19 program at Harmon, is it possible that they could add more nurses? Or because we had more people coming the last two. They didn't have enough. And it just seems like the health department, hopefully they would add more people so you won't just have, and it's going to be harder to add more. I don't know if it's possible. Is it possible to get them to
We
add more
will
people?
make that request. I'm looking at Mr. Covington. He had his
Yes,
hand.
when we met with the health department, I think they will be bringing 8 nurses.
Okay. Because they brought 3 at the last 2, and that just didn't hit it. Thank you.
Thank you. Other questions for Dr. Stubblefield? All right, thank you. I do have just a few things I'd like to share as well today. I do want to recognize all of our community comments that have come forward recently regarding school name changes and mascot changes. We have been having discussions around that. There is a board policy that must be followed in order to do that. Dr. Stubblefield, Ms. Page, and I had a conversation. I want to thank Dr. Yeager as well because she's also brought that up to the board and to our superintendent. And so we will be bringing that forward in one of our upcoming agendas and board meetings so that we can start the process of our policy to look at school name changes and mascots. I think there are some things that we can definitely do to be more sensitive. We just have to follow the right protocol and process. So I do want to thank those of you who have commented, both written comments, submitted email, or provided comment at a board meeting. So thank you.
And Randy, what is the procedure, we had mentioned about changing the name of Fairfax, would that be brought at the same time?
Yes, that would also go through the same board policy, and it's under my understanding. Dr.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, thank you. And we'll see that at one of our upcoming meetings in August.
Okay, great.
Thank you. I do want to congratulate, and I'm looking to see if she's in the room. She's not. Ms. Crystal Watson, the Executive Director of the Kansas City. Oh, is she back there? There she is. She's hiding from you behind the camera. She is the Executive Director of the Kansas City, Kansas Foundation for Excellence. She was recently this month recognized by the Kansas City Business Journal as Women Who Mean Business. And if you've ever met Crystal, you know she means business. So congratulations, Crystal, a well-deserved award. We're so proud and excited for you. There will be, there's a tentative awards celebration on August 20th. Board, you will receive more information on that. But we just want to say congratulations, Ms. Watson, for the work that you do. Definitely well-deserved award and recognition. Today I had a great conversation with Molly Gotobed from the Community Health Council of Wyandotte County regarding the Youth Substance Abuse Prevention Action Team, which is a subcommittee that they work with youth in Wyandotte County around substance abuse in our community. And she reminded me that that there is a Kansas Communities That Care survey that helps inform the work of this action group. And so she just reminded me that that's something that our students receive in their enrollment package. And I know our Student Services Department, Ms. Lisa Garcia Stewart, and her team have been working diligently on getting that information out to students. So I just wanted to give a shout out to the team for the work that they do, and a reminder to all of our students and families, please complete that survey and submit it with your enrollment packet. That would be great. Thank you. Earlier this week, Dr. Stubblefield and I were able to meet with Ms. Janet Murguia, who is a local Kansas City, Kansas native and graduate of Harmon High School. Ms. Murguia is the current president and CEO of Unidos US, the largest Latino civil rights and advocacy organization in the country. We met her at the old Argentine Library in the Carnegie Building as she was doing some filming for Unidos US's annual conference. And so it was a great conversation, a great opportunity for us to meet with Ms. Murguia to just chat about the district, our community, our families, and the work that Unidos is doing to support our community as well. So we look forward to continued collaboration with Ms. Murguia in the future. I will just mention another activity that's happening this Saturday at 9 a.m. at Central Middle School, sponsored by El Centro Inc. It's another vaccine clinic as well, and resource fair, and it's open to any and all families in the community. So that's another opportunity to get vaccinated and or other resources that they are handing out. And then lastly, I'm proud to share some great news about one of our very own employees, Dr. Octavio Estrella, Assistant Director of Student Services. Congratulations on successfully defending your dissertation this past Monday and earning your doctorate degree. We're so very proud of you and of you and your family, and excited to have you as part of our team. So, pa adelante, and congratulations to Dr. Octavio Estrella. So with that, any questions? Ms. Drew?
I don't have a question, but I just wanted to bring up that on Tuesday, September the 7th, here at our central office, there will be a Kansas Can tour with Commissioner Randy Watson. And if any of board members would like to please be present, it will be between the hours of 11:30 to 1 p.m. where you can just sit and have open conversation about education changes that are going on and ways in which we can address, ways in which we can improve education of our students within the upcoming school year. So if anyone is interested, let me know and I'll give you more information about it. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Drew. Dr. Nguyen?
And thank you, Mr. Lopez. The KASB State Convention, the registration is open November 5th to 7th, and that there's always a pre-conference. It's in Overland Park this year. It's always a pre-conference, so you can enroll in that. But this year there's 3 excursions. Essentially one for throwing an axe at Bury the Hatchet location, bowling, and Topgolf. So those have to be added with your registration, and I know my registration is paid for by KSB.
Thank you, Dr. Nguyen. For more information, board, please contact Ms. Smith if you'd like to learn more information about that convention. All right. Thank you. So we'll continue on with our agenda, and first up we have, so I'll pass it on to Dr. Stubblefield. We've got the parent handbook.
Okay. First up, we have the second read of the parent handbook. I asked the Kansas City Board of Education receive as a second reading of the parent handbook as submitted by Lisa Garcia Stewart, Director of Student Service, and as recommended by myself, Dr. Anna Stubblefield, Superintendent of Schools.
Good evening. Good evening, President Lopez, Vice Chair, Ms. Clark, board members, Dr. Stubblefield. The parent handbook is before you this evening as the second read. We'll have one more read at the first board meeting in August, but it is with your approval. I haven't received any additional feedback. There still will be some continued edits as we make sure that we're working with with Elizabeth Morris, the health coordinator, making sure we continue to have updated information. But I welcome any thoughts or feedback and your approval of the second read.
I make a motion that we approve the second read.
There's a motion. Is there a second?
I second it.
There's a second. Discussion. Ms. Page.
Okay. I didn't know if you got my message, and I noticed it was still the same way on what you sent in for the second read, where you show the picture of the board, but we still have 2 past members' names that are still included. And I did call, and I tried to speak with you, but they said I had to speak to your assistant to let them know, because it still shows Brenda Jones and Harold Brown, and I don't think we want that to go out like that.
Okay. I will correct that. I don't know how that copy was sent to you, but I will make sure to correct that.
Because it's even on the one that you have here.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Other questions?
So Lisa, when we get the third read, all the typos and everything will be corrected? It will be,
Yes.
like it would be ready to print or whatever?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you. It's still in its very rough draft as people have been adding information, changing the information to be submitted to the board.
Great. Other thoughts or questions? Okay. Ms. Smith, roll call, please.
Yolanda Clark,
Yolanda Clark, yes.
Maxine Drew,
Maxine Drew, yes.
Janie Humphries,
Janie Humphries, yes.
Randy Lopez,
Randy Lopez, yes.
Wanda Brownlee Page,
Wanda Brownlee Page, yes.
Dr. Nguyen,
Dr. Nguyen, yes.
Dr. Yeager.
Dr. Yeager, yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm still here.
Okay, next we have the second step curriculum resources. I move that the Kansas City Board of Education approve the recommendation to purchase additional second step social emotional curriculum resources for use in the elementary classroom as submitted by Ms. Lisa Garcia Stewart, Director of Student Services, and Mr. Stephen Lincoln, Chief of Staff, and as recommended by myself, Dr. Anna Stubblefield, Superintendent of Schools.
I have it here on my screen, but I don't see it up there.
Oh.
Okay. Will it go into presentation mode? Perfect. Thank you. I appreciate being before you again. Just to share the expansion of our social emotional learning curriculum, and just as a reinforcement of the alignment, our social emotional priorities with the board education priorities around safe and respectful learning environment, high expectation for student achievement. And this curriculum is the curriculum that is currently approved by the Board of Education that we use kindergarten through 8th grade, and supports the work of our social emotional learning and trauma sensitive and resilient schools that is occurring in our district. Our rationale for the expansion is to support the elementary schools' family advocacy time. So we'll have family advocacy time, kindergarten through 12th grade. Currently, we have second step kids in our schools with our counselors, but the family advocacy will occur every Monday for 30 minutes and will be delivered by our classroom teachers. We'll continue to focus on the collaboration with our social emotional learning and Diploma Plus, with additional reinforcement of teachers leading that curriculum on Mondays and then allowing for the reteaching throughout the week. Our school counselors will continue to reinforce and reteach those social skills throughout the week in their small group, individual, and guidance lessons. Social emotional learning and Diploma Plus will continue to provide support around what's happening in kindergarten through 5th grade, not just with second step, but with Connector that's around those real college and career readiness experiences. Again, this is the not new curriculum, we're just asking for the expansion. Our social emotional learning coordinators worked really hard to develop that scope and sequence so we can really focus on the coherency and alignment. The curriculum reinforces that collaboration that I spoke to, not just with Diploma Plus, but with the Departments of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion. And the curriculum from Committee for Children's Second Step has that diversity, equity, and inclusion timeline and works with experts in culturally responsive pedagogy. This curriculum also aligns with our state social emotional character development standards. So our request today is for approval simply because we have the one meeting this month. We want these kids in the hands of our classroom teachers to begin that family advocacy on the very first day of school. The rationale again for the purchase of the expansion for the additional 84 kids, so they're in our classrooms for our teachers, as opposed to the digital, is that we won't have to repurchase the license every year. The second step kits have the manipulatives, the Muppets, the puppets, that all of those things that come with the kits to engage in the social emotional learning lessons. This will again be a permanent resource. Our coordinator of social emotional learning, Tracy Chauvin, whom you've met and has presented to the board, will create an inventory system so that we'll continue to maintain those kids kindergarten through 8th grade, especially if we continue to have new teachers added on or teachers move to a different building. Our recommendation to the board for approval is that it will be paid for through our Title I 2021 carryover funds that will cover the cost of the expansion since all elementary schools are Title I funded. We do provide the digital license for middle school, and at high school we'll use a free resource of Overcoming Obstacles and Mindful Momentum. So our request, based on any questions that you have or feedback or thoughts, is to approve the expansion of the current curriculum that we use for social emotional learning.
Thank you.
And I'll
Ms.
open it up to the board for questions.
Thank you, Ms. Garcia Stewart. Questions from the board? Dr. Nguyen.
Thank you, Mr. Lopez. So translate this for me, please.
Yes.
Your last slide. So then, are there any elementary schools that then will not have any, or this covers every elementary school?
This will cover every elementary school.
Okay. Now, is the 178,340 the balance of the carryover funds, or are there additional carryover funds that have not been spent?
I will, I don't know if Lisa Walker is able to get on. She is our Executive Director of Federal Programs and can speak to the carryover funds and what the balance will be.
Yes, there are some additional carryover funds in Title I, so this is not the entire carryover balance.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Walker. How much remains, and what are the intended uses for that, or how long will it carry over?
I would have to get that information for you on the exact amount, and we're in the process of working with buildings and departments to determine other strategic ways to use that carryover that will support our KISA and district strategic plan and board priority outcome goals.
So I guess this is a generic question. At the end of the fiscal year, is there an accounting, a normal process of accounting so that you don't, so that you will, well, let me stop there. Is there a normal accounting at the end of the fiscal year?
Yes.
So, however, you do not know what the ending balance is.
I don't have that memorized right now, but we have the ending balance. We're required to submit all of that to the state, and we have already submitted our carryover to the state, and that has been approved.
Okay, and Dr. Stubblefield, I would not expect anyone to have anything memorized when we're dealing in millions of dollars. But that being said, thank you.
Thank you. Other questions?
I'll make a motion that we accept the second step curriculum resource as presented.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Further questions or discussion? If not, Ms. Smith, roll call, please.
Yolanda Clark,
Yolanda Clark, yes.
Maxine Drew,
Maxine Drew, yes.
Janie Humphries,
Janie Humphries, yes.
Randy Lopez,
Randy Lopez, yes.
Wanda Brownlee Page,
Wanda Brownlee Page, yes.
Dr. Nguyen,
Dr. Nguyen, yes.
Dr. Yeager.
Dr. Yeager, yes.
Thank you.
Motion passes. Thank you so much, Ms.
Thank you,
Garcia
board.
Stewart.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, next, that the Kansas City Board of Education accept as an information item the one-page guidance document in regard to our return to in-person learning for the 21-22 school year, as submitted by Stephen Lincoln, Chief of Staff, and as recommended by myself, Dr. Anna Stubblefield, Superintendent of Schools.
Good evening, Board President Lopez, Vice President Clark, rest of the board. Great to see you, Dr. Stubblefield. Great to see you here in the first meeting. I'm here representing a reentry team that will be talking about our reentry to school for our students on this August. So when we talk about the team, we want to look at the team, who they were first. So you see there's a diverse group of individuals who were involved, representatives of all different aspects of the organization. We had teacher voice through KNEA. We, of course, had our health coordinator because we know that's a constant change that's going on and things we have to work with. Our new director of DARA, as well as human resources, myself, and many other aspects of our organization. And there was also a board member who was involved. So some main points from the one-pager are these. We're asking that masks be required of all staff, students, parents, and visitors. Due to the low vaccination rate in the county, the variants that are popping up in different places across the city, the country, what have you, we think it's important that we try to maintain a safe and healthy learning and work environment. The first thing we think we need to do is go with the masks, have those continue, reevaluate that as we go. This reentry team will be meeting monthly. And then, of course, if data changes, if vaccination rates change, it is something we can revisit, come back to the board and bring to you and say, we had proposed this change, or we may come back to you and say, we're going to continue on this course due to the health facts around us. Our buses will require all students and staff to wear their masks as well. As you guys know, we have the immunizations that students have to do yearly. COVID symptoms, we're going to continue with the practice of if you feel it, you think it, stay home. We'd rather be safe than sorry. Our custodians will engage in the great practices they've been involved in. And one change that is very different is the social distancing is no longer required
or no longer encouraged or required by CDC or the county. So one of the things we will do is implement that wherever possible, but we cannot guarantee that everyone will be 3 to 6 feet apart at all times. But we will do our best at school sites to do that. Learning modes. This is going to be something very different than last year. So it'll be virtual learning if students do not come in person. So it'll be through Greenbush, and what that means, because I know the terms remote and virtual kind of became interchangeable amongst people's vocabulary, the virtual mode is basically self-paced. So students would enroll in Greenbush through student services. Student services would help them with that process, but there would not be a teacher daily talking to them, checking in with them, and doing those types of things. I think it's very important that our community knows that, because a lot of people, when they hear these terms, and I'm going to tell you, my family are not all educators. They said, oh yeah, your nephew is doing virtual. And I'm like, no, he's doing remote. Or they say he's doing remote and vice versa. So we really want to be clear on this so that our parents know as they look at school options, if they are looking for something virtual, Greenbush is open to them, and that can be done through our student services department. We also really want to emphasize that our teachers will not be doing what I'm doing, which is looking at the screen and then looking up at you. They'll be teaching the students in front of them. We know there were some challenges that presented last year in hybrid learning, as there were anywhere from 10 to 30 kids in front of teachers, as well as a nice MacBook that they were looking at as they were teaching. So that will be different this year, and that's why we're offering with Greenbush. I do want to make an update, as we know everything's changing in today's world. We now have 50 elementary spots and 50 middle school. My slides say 30 and 40. That addendum was made today. So that's why those numbers are different. And we still will have 200 high school slots, which is what we've had currently. The other thing I would like to mention is we're expecting, if you enroll online, you stay there for the semester. We do understand there are hardships and case-by cases where we may have to sit down with the family and make that change. But that is a recommendation, because as we look at our high school students in particular, we don't want any interruption to credit or to learning. We want them on track to graduate, and we want them learning everything academically we can get to them. Quarantine is something that will generally come up, and unfortunately it's part of our world at this point. So the procedures that we'll be doing as far as student learning is we expect all materials to be on Canvas. That way when students at home, they can access them. This is something normal in a lot of parts of the country. A lot of people will have a quote-unquote hub where students will access learning materials. We're moving into that and doing the same thing. Extremely excited about it. One thing I know that will be asked, yes, our teachers will be getting trained on Canvas as they return in August, because we do know that was something that people did get trained on, but we always need more professional development. So those things will be available. The connection between the teacher and the student will be between Canvas messaging and email. So they can communicate that way. Of course, the teacher could always pick up the phone and call the family and just say, hey, how's Steven doing? I know he's home for X amount of days through a quarantine. That's also, also available. When available, there will be synchronous learning opportunities, and buildings will continue with some of the plans that they had during the spring. This is another area that we're going to emphasize is campus can have outdoors activities. We're recommending this. This is recommended through KCKPS. This is recommended through the CDC. This is recommended through the county health departments. We are stating, though, we would like smaller numbers at back to school or open house events. So if possible, if they could do by grade level, because we know at a high school, and we can use Wyandotte as an example with 1,800 kids, you do an open house to all 4 grade levels, potentially you could have 4,000 to 5,000 parents there. Not that we're against parents being there, but we also want to maintain healthy learning environments and safe spaces for everybody. What KCKPS is doing with athletics is your outdoor events are not requiring masking. So spectators and athletes are not being required to mask. This is based off of the science, as they like to say a lot on TV. Their data has shown them for infection rates. We can have outdoor events a little more safely than indoor, and that open air does do some different things than a closed air environment. So we'd be looking at that. Where district mitigation practices come in place, and I'll just use volleyball as an example. One thing we did bring up is the athletes and the coaches not being masked, but our spectators coming in being in masks. That way our athletes may not overheat or maybe have breathing problems as they're competing, as we have seen in other states. It's a board decision. These are the recommendations we're bringing forward, but I just wanted to mention that. Spectators will be back. We're going to be happy to see parents in the stands. We hope to see some students in there, masked up if they're inside, if they're outside, without masks. And all fine arts and PE courses are going to be offered with mitigations and adaptations to instruction per local health department guidelines. I would love to sit here tonight and say, here's what we're going to do, but there's a meeting next week where they're going to get further clarification that we can then send forward so parents will have better clarity about what their students need to do. In band, we probably still will have those masks that were used over the instruments. Don't ask me the name because I kept calling them Bluebell, made me think of the ice cream, but it is something Bell. But we'll continue those safety practices to ensure that students and staff are safe as we do this. These are just some highlights of the one-pager you received and some of the other documents that you got in regards to academics and so forth earlier. Now the floor is open to questions, and I will answer what I can. If I don't have the answer, I will, what do they say, email a friend? And we have some friends online that will help out in certain areas.
Thank you, Mr. Linkus. Would now open for questions. Ms. Humphries.
Stephen, did you say that in about a week, KCKPS will have more information put out about activities?
Yes, Jody Lynn will be part of that information about our PE band and those type of things. And I'm glad you brought that up because one of the things in the slide is that we do expect to have plays, concerts, those types of things. I didn't say those specifically because a lot of people get caught up on sporting events, but we do know we have a lot of students and families that are excited about that, and we want them to know that we expect those to take place.
So the first meeting in August, you should have more information for us on their guidance.
Yes, ma'am, we'll have more information by then.
Okay, thank you.
Ms. Page.
Yes. Do we have nurses at all the schools?
I would need to ask Miss Morris where we are. I'm not sure if she is. Miss Morris, are you?
She's right behind you.
She's even closer than I thought.
Good evening, board members. Yes, we will have nurses at every building, just as we did in the spring.
Okay, but currently, right now, do we know, we have a lot of openings. I'm just asking, are all those positions filled for the nursing department?
So I do have one or two buildings I don't have assigned, but we do have either staff nurses or agency in place. And I have more candidates that I'm interviewing this week, so we will be fully staffed.
Okay. And then my second question, Mr. Linkus, is in regard to Greenbush. I know you gave us different numbers. You said it was 50, 50, 200. If it exceeds this amount, can we go over, or are we just locked in on the 50, 50, 200?
Ms. Page, I can answer that. I spoke with Greenbush yesterday directly, and we just had to guarantee a number of seats, and based off of the outreach that we did, we have 30 families who are currently already enrolled. We guaranteed the 50 at each level, and they said, like tonight, since we're talking about it, if families hear about it or we pass on the information, if we exceed it, we can work with them. They need the guarantee in order, because then they hire the staff. But they recognize with lots of schools talking about their reentry plans, all the different districts that do work with them, that there may be a bump. So they just asked us to let them know sooner than later if we need to increase our guaranteed seats.
Okay. And then, and thank you so much. Mr. Linkus, there's still some parents who are saying they don't have that information, and where can they look to get it?
It's available on the website. They just need to call our main number. They'll connect to student services. We can also get something, get more communication out to them. I know we did some work May and June as we finished the school year, but we can do that again.
Okay, and then what about that group that doesn't have the technology? Because we know Spectrum and all the, it's not free. So how do we communicate with them?
We'll work with our department. We have the million, I can't remember what it's termed exactly, but it's free internet through Sprint. We do give laptops. We will be checking those back out to students, depending on the level. It could be an iPad, a MacBook, or a Chromebook. We can work with our technology department and Mr. Hoda. We have the million, I can't remember what it's called, but basically it does give them a device they can take home for internet. And if they were to choose to go that virtual route, it does give them access to the internet. And they've upped the amount of gigs because initially it was a very small number of gigs, but they've bumped it up because what they figured out, like we did, is once kids got on there, within a few days, if it's 3 gigs, the gigs are gone. So now they bumped it up because they do want to see students be successful if they do that at home.
And are we working on, I know what the legislature has mandated, I get that, I don't have an issue with that. But do we have a backup plan where we're not just reacting to something? Because things, they seem to be taking a little turn for the worse. So what if, are we working on that, your committee? Do we have a backup plan? And
So-
then did we evaluate the last time, you don't have to answer it now, but did we evaluate what worked, what didn't work? Because our width band was a major issue. So are we working on those things so if what if comes up, we're prepared, not waiting to see if it happens. We are already working your committee saying, well, what if this happens? What do we need to do? And have a plan in place so that we're prepared.
So one of the things, I can actually address both of those. One of the things we're working on is the use of Canvas. We did not have that as a tool last year, and it is a central, it's like a hub where we can put the work for the students. If we did have hotspots or we did get into a situation where the board said, you know, we have too high an infection rate, it's better that we're back, you know, at remote learning. Our teachers now have received professional development and have a much better idea of how to implement that. With Canvas, they have access to a lot more tools to get materials out to students in real time, which is a little different than some of the stuff they were previously doing with, you know, kind of standards-based stuff, but to be more curriculum-based. The other part of that, and I forgot your second question because I did have an answer to that as well. Could you repeat your second question?
Okay, well, now you got me off. But here's, I want to know, what is your backup plan? So if things turn worse,
Yeah.
what are we to do?
We can go back to remote learning. We do have that access if we need to, and that's where Canvas is going to be a major tool this time. Because with being able to put all of those assignments, projects, and activities in there, it's much easier to grade for students. It's much easier to keep track of their progress, and it gives us multiple mechanisms of communication. So we have telephone, Canvas messaging, email, and it opens up more doors than what we had even 6 months ago. And the staff is all getting trained in August. So as teachers return, they're going to get more in-depth training within Canvas because we want this used across the system. We know last year some teachers used it, some didn't. We're very cognizant about that. This is our step to ensure that everyone's using it. The second thing you talked about was a survey, so it clicked back in my brain. We actually have a couple surveys put together, one for staff and one for the community. We're working with those. Dr. Stubblefield will see those again. The committee has worked on them. They're ready to roll. So once we get these pieces out, we're going to do that evaluation piece because we do want feedback from our community and our staff to say, if it's in the staff's case, we want to know what type of professional development they would like if we have to do this again. In the community's case, what do they want us to do in person to help catch students up? But then also, like you mentioned, if we get back into this situation, what are the pieces we need to think about? So honestly, we're hoping we don't do it again, but if we have to, we can do it better than last time. And there's
And then-
specific questions to that, yeah.
And then one last thing, one concern a lot of teachers had was that we didn't require the kids to turn the cameras on. Do you have some structures, some strategies for that? Because how can we get them to make sure that they're focused? Because they're turning it off. And I know some parents who had their kids, you can get the screens, I'm not a real techie person, but they were able to just go online and pull up some screens as backdrops if that was a concern. And that was an issue that a lot of teachers had. And some parents were concerned about. So I don't know if you talked about that, but those were just some things that kind of went through.
Yeah, one of the things and the reasons we didn't say they had to require the camera on is because of bandwidth. And depending on where they live in the community, just unfortunately some areas have faster bandwidth than others. It has a faster gigabyte rate. Rashid's the expert on that, I'm not, but I do know it's quicker in some places, so for some families that was easier. What we can do, and since you brought that up, is we'll talk within the committee and work with our academics team, and we have an associate soup coming on board that we'll be happy to work with and see what some of those check-ins can look like. So that way, even if the camera is off, we know that Stephen Linkus is actually there, he's answering questions, and you know, I'm not drinking a Dr. Pepper and, you know, playing the video game on my phone. So we definitely understand where you're coming from, and we'll address that.
Dr. Yeager?
Yes, the question I have and the reminder is, we have 7 schools that require uniforms. some parents online were concerned about where they can get them, pick them up. So if there's a way we can possibly post resources where they can get clothing from or recommendations, we know our support services is excellent at helping our students identify places to get them or if they don't have the funds to do that. Also, I want to applaud the district again for being able to purchase the school supplies for every student and having them available in class ready day one. I think this is so important for our district to be acknowledged for. We have cameras here so they can know that our district does take care of our students. Last year, there was a lot of concern around, will the students have enough supplies? Will they have what they need in the box? And it was very well, worked very well, in my opinion, last year, because it allowed me as a parent to know that on day one, they would have everything they need and throughout the school year. So I just want to continue to applaud us for doing things like that for our kids. So they will, that will let parents know who may not be able to afford or have to depend on going to various places, public places where there could be some situations that we are taking care of our students again this year.
We will definitely make sure that information is visible in many avenues so that our families can take advantage of that. And thank you to the board for helping us fund that and make sure that happened.
Other questions to the reentry and to the mitigation protocols presented today by Mr. Linkus? Ms. Drew and then Dr. Nguyen. Thank you.
I don't have any questions, but would just like to say that we have been meeting and coming up with ideas in which we can try to implement this. And if there are any board members who have any suggestions of ways in which we can possibly try to make sure, say, for example, that the students are online and not having a blank screen. If you have any suggestions, send them to myself or even to Mr. Linkus, and we will address it and discuss it in ways in which we can try to make sure that we do cover our bases with everything.
Thank you, Ms. Drew.
Thank you.
Dr. Nguyen.
And thank you, Mr. Lopez. And I guess this is kind of a question for you, Dr. Stubblefield, but based on what Mr. Linkus just said, because of the hoopla over remote learning, are we seriously considering remote learning?
No, I just wanted to clarify, but I was going to let everyone get their point across. I think he was saying if we were in some capacity, if the state were to say, you know, schools are out like it was in the beginning, but because of the current legislation, it's not an option for any district in the state of Kansas. However, it could be a situation where an entire class may have to quarantine, and in that case, the teachers would be prepared to provide the learning under the guidance. There's some specific guidance from KSDE around if students are quarantined, how do you take the attendance so you can count the minutes. And so we've been talking internally about that on the training we'll need to provide to the registrars and the building principals. But if something happened and it was saying, you know, all schools are remote or that, it would have to come from a higher level. It's not a decision that right now our local board or myself as the superintendent can make. But we would be prepared for quarantine, which would then make us prepared if something drastic were to happen. Yes.
Right, but our local board can make that decision, but it's a very limited window that I know you know, but I didn't, the manner in which you delivered, that couldn't possibly have been the correct statement.
Yeah, and I apologize if that did come across that way, but we do plan for as close to 100% in person, minus the students who choose to go to Greenbush and do virtual.
Okay, and thank you. Generic question, did we purchase desk shields? And are we, yes, going to use them or no, not use them anymore?
So at this point, what we're doing is we're actually, so the one pager that you received is a one pager for community. We're actually in a process, and Chris Scott, one of our IIOs, has been working, she's been heading this process of working with principals, and we're going to get a uniform practice across the district. So we're getting their input to figure out how to use the desk shields and those pieces of mitigation materials universally. Because one of the things we heard last year from the board, but also in the community and from teachers is, well, I'm at blank elementary school and we have to do this or have this. But Mr. Lopez is at blank elementary school and he does not have to do that. So we're working on that. We did purchase them. They are at the school sites. They are all there to be used. So we're going to come across with that. We're getting principal input. We've reached out to them because they're the ones going to be there with the kids.
Okay, thank you. Now 3 questions about Greenbush. Do the kids that utilize Greenbush, do they get KCKPS devices?
Yes.
They will be receiving KCKPS devices.
Okay. And we had discussion about the student handbook. Is that on the webpage, Greenbush's student handbook?
Dr. Estrella, can you help us with that? I know you're somewhere looking at us.
Here, yes. I will check with Greenbush. I don't think it's on our website. I do believe that they do have a handbook that they do provide once a student enrolls in the virtual academy, but I don't think that we house it on our website. But I will double check on that.
Right, that's probably the reason some of these parents are still confused. So do students with IEPs, are they eligible to use Greenbush?
Yes, they should be. I don't want to speak out of turn.
Octavio?
There's probably a parent listening that needs to know something,
Yeah.
some clarification.
Absolutely, but so we are working with our special education department to ensure that those students are, that someone is sitting down with the family and making sure that they are able to get the services that they need in their virtual setting.
Dr. Lori is making her way up to the microphone to provide further clarification. Thank you, Dr. Lori. Good to see you.
And thank you.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
We are allowing our families that have students with disabilities to go ahead and put in an application for Greenbush. However, our IEP teams will have to meet to make sure that we can provide FAPE through that particular mode of instruction. So that will be an IEP team decision, and then at that point, it will be discussed for the parent to make other decisions after that. But they can go ahead and apply. We meet as a team.
Thank you, Dr. Stubblefield.
Other questions or discussion? Not, there is a recommendation from staff to accept the one-pager which would outline these practices for students and staff in returning.
So moved.
Would entertain a motion. Moved?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Further clarification questions? If not, Ms. Smith, please do a roll call.
Yolanda Clark,
Yolanda Clark, yes.
Maxine Drew,
Maxine Drew, yes.
Janie Humphries,
Janie Humphries, yes.
Randy Lopez,
Randy Lopez, yes.
Wanda Brownlee Page,
Wanda Brownlee Page, yes.
Dr. Nguyen,
Dr. Nguyen, yes.
Dr. Yeager.
Dr. Yeager, yes.
Thank you.
Motion passes. Thank you. I would just, again, thank you, Mr. Linkus, Dr. Stubblefield, and team. This is going to be very critical. I'm sure there will be plenty of questions, so I would just continue to make sure that we communicate this well in terms of what this means for our students when they return, for our families, for all of our staff. Mr. Birch and your team, and Mr. Linkus, I'm sure you all are all over it, but we will be sending information for everyone so that there's clarity. If there are questions, folks can reach out to the school district, to the main office line, and for any questions. But thank you, team, for putting that together.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next on the agenda, we have the budget approval and completion, and I recommend that the Kansas City, Kansas Board of Education complete the 21-22 budget as submitted by Dennis Covington, Chief Financial Officer, and as recommended by myself, Dr. Anna Stubblefield, Superintendent of Schools.
Good evening, Board.
Good evening.
We're here once again to try to finalize the 21-22 budget. The last we met, there was some options that was suggested that we go out and go and cost out. So I will get to those. The recommended budget was that we remove the money that was put on hold for the bilingual, bilateral. So those dollars has been eliminated. And that we also adjust the cost for the new assistant principals. So those changes equated to $93,000 being added to the assistant principal line and $225,000 being added to the classified 3% line to be used to adjust our lowest paid employee salaries up more than the 3%. And the HR department is currently working on how that looks. So it won't go far with just $225,000, but we will use those dollars to adjust the percentage increase for our lowest paid employees. Option 2 was if we funded.
Mr. Covington, I'm sorry, Dr. Nguyen has a clarifying question for you.
Thank you, Mr. Lopez. So, help me do the math then. The adjustment how did you spend the $92,000 for the assistant principals? Is that what you said?
Right. The line had the assistant principals at the current pay. And if you all approve the market adjustment as that's within the 970, the only funds that's left to redirect are the funds that was a part of the bilingual, bilateral. And so we use part of those dollars to up the assistant principals to the new rate, and the remaining went to the classified 3% line.
Okay, so what new rate did you up it to, please? 100%?
Yes, that's option 1, for us not to change the recommendation that was presented before, that the 970 would be 100%.
And so whether left over due to a person making $13 an hour?
I don't have that exact number, but those dollars will be used to go towards our lowest paid employees to increase their percentage increase. Because right now, everyone is slated at 3%. We would use the $225,000 to affect a group of our lowest paid employees to get them to maybe 3.5%.
So when do you think you'd have that number? I mean, do you expect us to approve this tonight, Dr. Stubblefield, with unknown numbers?
Well, and I think Kelly and Rachel are on. I believe that they were working on that.
Rachel can probably speak to, I'm sorry, this is Kelly. I'm here, and I'm just wondering, I'm actually on vacation, so I know that Rachel is on here as well and can probably speak to some different options, but I think personally, if we go through the other 2 options, it might make more sense. That would just be my first thought, because each one of them will have more dollars to redirect to our lowest paid employees, and will be money that's available to increase the overall classified pay increase. And then I know that Rachel's ran different scenarios based on each one of those options. It is kind of complex, but I think maybe if we go through all 3 of them and then come back, maybe that might be a good suggestion. Would that be okay?
Okay, let's, Mr. Covington, do you want to continue, and we'll hold that question, Dr. Nguyen? Thank you.
Okay, option 1 is if we fund the market adjustment for the directors, assistant directors, principal, and APs at 75%. And so we would adjust the new assistant principals down to the rate at 75%. And then we would use those remaining dollars from the bilingual, bilateral reduction and adding in the reduction to those market adjustments. And then you would have $491,000 to apply towards your classified salaries to increase that percentage for our lowest paid employees. Option 2, I'm sorry, was to do 50% for the market adjustments for directors, assistant directors, and principals. So that would take that number down to $485,000. It will increase the other new assistant principals by $46,000, going up to $673,000. and that would allow $757,000 to be used to increase our lowest paid employees' salary increase greater than 3%. And those were the three options that you all asked for.
Thank you, Mr. Covington. So there is the original recommended option that Mr. Covington covered, which we discussed last week, and then per the board's direction, we have the option 1 and option 2. So there are 3 proposals in front of you. I just want to make sure that we're clear that there aren't just 2, but there's the original recommendation from staff, and then the option 1 with the 75% and option 2 with 50%.
So to clarify, the ESL have been taken out of both of them?
Yes, out of all three
of them.
we reduced that line based on you all's, I say, recommendation at the last meeting, that we would remove it.
Okay.
And I think that was to help, to give staff more time to really think through what that could look like and maybe plan for in the future of how to roll that out, rather than trying to rush it through this budget term, but give staff some time to really think through that.
So to be clear, we're looking at either adopting option 1 or option 2. Is that clear?
Well, there's 3. The recommendation, where we do 100% to the directors, assistant directors, principals, and APs, 75% or 50%.
Okay, got it.
Yes, thank you. Dr. Stubblefield?
No, I was going to say, do you want to talk about the other additional information once we got notification after this was already sent about?
Yes, I will cover that.
Okay. Just so they'll have it all when they're talking about,
So hold your question real quick, Janie. We'll see if, is that okay?
Yes.
So Mr. Covington can cover this piece, and then we'll come back to you.
Yes, this is additional great information.
Thank you.
We got on late Friday the notification that KSB approved our ESSER 2 funding. And if you recall that we had $1.5 million in our budget for textbooks, and now those dollars will be covered out of ESSER. And so this $1.5 million can be used as the board wishes, either for salary increases for our lowest paid employees or for helping in teacher negotiations.
Okay. I will go to Ms. Humphries first, and I will come back to Dr. Nguyen. Thank you.
I seem to remember, this is before a lot of you were around, except for Dr. Nguyen, that during the previous governor's administration and during all of our budget cuts, a lot of our administrators went without raises for several years, which shows in why we're behind in the salary schedule. So, as I've thought about it since last week, I would like to make a motion when it's appropriate that we go with the 100% recommendation. I don't know if you want that motion now or later on in the discussion.
Okay. So there's a question, you want to make a motion. Dr. Nguyen, I know you have a question, so I'll come to you first.
So we could also reduce the total budget by that amount, correct? I guess that's a question for you, Dr. Stubblefield.
Yes, that is an option. When we found out and had a chance to talk about it yesterday, we didn't move it because we did want the board to have the information. You could reduce the total budget, but when we were talking about, addressing some of our lowest paid employees, that was a large sum of money that could be used in that fashion. So we didn't want to make the decision and plug it, but yeah, it would be a board decision.
So the combination of still could be reducing the total budget, going at 50% and still upping the lowest employees.
Yes.
Yes, that's correct. With the
That's
money
correct.
saved from the reduction of the market adjustment and the bilingual, you could still adjust your lowest paid employees.
And are you saying then of the 89 million, only 1.5 is available? You said ESSER 2 funds. We've been allocated 89 million.
Right, but there was a line for textbooks, and
So
that's
just
there.
the textbook.
Well, all
Yes.
of it was approved, but
Correct.
it was, the only thing that was in this budget that was also in
In
ESSER
ESSER was
was
these
the
textbooks.
Okay,
textbooks, yes.
but I think it has to be clear that 89 million is still available.
Correct,
Correct.
in ESSER's funds.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Nguyen. Ms. Page?
I don't have a question, just a comment. And if you look at, the budget says a lot in terms of equity and how we treat everybody. And it's not just the administrators. I'm not saying they don't deserve a raise, from bottom to top. We got to spread that out better. And if we look at what's going on with our teachers, when you have 98 vacancies, you know, we got to make sure we're hitting everybody and giving everybody a piece of the pie. I know you can't do everything, but we got to do something. And we need to be real careful, because if you do it at the top and you really don't do what you need to do for the teachers and others at the bottom, it's not going to be a good recipe, and it could come back to haunt us.
Thank you, Ms. Page.
I would like to add, during those years that the administrators did not receive raises, the teachers did.
But a lot of, I worked for 30 years, and what we got for a raise didn't balance out. Because every time we got something, we moved to a tax bracket, then we're back to the same situation we were in before we got the raise. Again, I'm not saying they don't deserve it. I'm just saying, can we please be fair and keep in mind we have 98 vacancies and people are leaving.
Yes, they are. We have vacancies everywhere. I'm just saying that is my rationale for looking at the vacancies that we've had, the people that have left. And I know the percentage looks very high, but when I look at the years that there were no raises in that section, that is why we're behind. They didn't get incremental raises at a time, like some other sections did. And we are definitely losing our principals and our assistant principals. And to have strong teachers, we have to have strong leaders too. That's my opinion. And everyone has different opinions. I also think we need to look at using some of that other money to bring up our lowest wages. So that I've advocated for that for a long time. I'm just saying that my opinion is we need to go with the 100%. And I'm making that motion.
I second it.
Thank you. So to be clear, Ms. Humphries, your motion is to accept the original recommendation of the salary increases for directors that was presented last week, minus the line item on the bilingual pay, biliterate pay. I just want to make sure that that's clear, right?
Yes.
Okay. And Ms. Drew, you're seconding that. Thank you. Questions, discussion? Dr. Nguyen.
I totally disagree with you because when the block grants were distributed, there were not raises. A lot of budgets were frozen, a lot of cuts were made. Secondly, without knowing where that lower end is going, your premise cannot be satisfied because you have no clue, because they haven't figured it out yet. To have a 16.8% pay increase, in my opinion, is ridiculous. And to tax the people of Kansas City, Kansas, to have an 8.7 to a 16.8 when we have people not making 3, and then the others, who knows? But that is, I know many of the staff have said they are offended by some of my statements. That offends me. And as far as I'm concerned, it's a slap in the face to the taxpayer of Kansas City, Kansas. I asked the board to look at data so that we could look at a more comprehensive rating of Wyandotte County compared to other districts. The board did not. But to say that you feel it is equitable to grant and pay for via taxation a 16.8% increase, I'll say it again, is ridiculous and disrespectful to the taxpayer, and I oppose that totally.
Randy, I would like to clarify, how much will be going to the classified if that is adopted? If the original budget is adopted, I didn't see that it was allocated additional funding for the classified, so how is that going to be determined?
The classified number from the original would go up by $200-some thousand, which will not go far to spread to our lowest paid employees. Unless
It would be about-
the $1.5 million is also used to go to your lowest paid employees, but that is a decision of the board.
Right, I would ask that after this vote that we have more discussion about what portion can go to that amount, because I think that's really important, and I think all of us have voiced that same concern about how we can provide additional funds for that. So I would say after this vote for us to have that continued discussion and actually put it on a line item to get some feedback for us to make a decision.
You mean the 1.5 million that's
Yes.
being brought? Thank you.
Can I interject something? I know Rachel's out there and she's constantly working these calculations. So she could provide some examples to look at that would say how much from our lowest paid starting salary would a 4% or 3.5%. I know she's been working, looking at all those scenarios. It just depends on the decisions that get made. But we have been working all these various scenarios to look at how it might affect starting pay tables for our lowest paid employees.
Kelly, I think if she can share that, that may help with the discussion.
Yeah.
Like if she says if it's 3.5, the lowest paid will be at 14 an hour. If it's 4, that will help
Yes.
the board
And
members.
Rachel, I know
believe.
you're on. Can you just give us like the lowest paid person, if we went to a 3.5 or a 4% increase, what would the lowest starting salary be for our lowest paid employees?
Okay, and yeah, for that $200,000 amount that Dennis was referring to, if we went with the 100% proposal that we had given last time, then our lowest paid employees would be getting a 4% increase instead of that 3% that the rest of the classified staff would be getting. And so that would put them at $13.57 in the starting rate instead of $13.05.
Okay. And then if we went up more, and I know you probably haven't had time to think about this, but if we added the 1.5 in with that, of course, you can do a lot more with that.
Right, and that would be closer to getting us to a halfway mark to that $15. So that would put the lowest paid closer to the $14.03 hourly rate. And
So you would have some groups that were getting $15 at that point.
Correct. What would happen there is if we allocated the 1.5 as well, to add to the 3% increases in that lowest paid group, we would go from a group of employees that are currently making less than $15 an hour of 338 staff members. After that increase, we'd be looking more like 169 employees would be making less than $15 an hour.
And the other thing that we are working on, just so you know, and we'll make a proposal for this next year, that's what our plan was, is how to approach the next couple of years so that we can hit that desired mark of $15 an hour for our lowest paid employees. But it would take, even this year, we could not accomplish that for our employees without major compression issues. And so we do have a plan for how we would roll that out over the next 2 to 3 years. So I think that answers part of our question of we would see a, you know, a nice increase in our starting salaries, and we would be still needing to adjust that lowest group by some more, but we could do that over the probably next year or two.
Rachel, can I ask a question? Because I just think it will help the board. And that was that if it was at 100%, is it too much to ask for you to say if it was at 75 or 50 plus the 1.5, what that would do for the lowest paid employee groups, if that was the desire, just so everybody can have the
Right, I would
information?
like to know the 75%.
Okay.
Because it seems like if we did it 75%, there would be enough money to possibly be able to push it to the 14 hours this year, rather than waiting a couple of years.
And is it possible to also check, because it sounds, just from what I heard, correct me if I didn't get it right, that you were saying that 1.5 would also go for the lowest group, but then what about your teachers? Is any of that money going toward them?
So, Ms. Page, I would say, as I said the last time, that line where it says certified is a holding spot, and until negotiations, whatever is decided there, if it's more or less, that's where that line would have to be adjusted. I don't want us, if teachers are watching, to think that we are negotiating that final number.
No, I'm just saying.
But
I
it
heard
could
them-
be.
I didn't hear
Yeah.
that maybe that money could go toward that. I just heard the lowest group. So
Yes,
I just
yeah.
wanted clarity on that. And
Yeah.
I know we're not trying to negotiate
Right.
it now, but I just didn't know if some of that could be used, or, I don't know, I'm just trying to figure it out.
The 1.5 is now available at the board's discretion to either go towards the lowest paid employees or any other thing you all decide to do, which could include the teachers, or it could be, as Dr. Wynn say, reduce the budget. That's a board's decision.
Mr. Lopez,
Dr. Wynn?
you know what I find, and I'm going to keep it clean, comical. Now we're asking Rachel to crunch some numbers, and she's struggling to get 50 cents for a lower paying worker. 100% at step 10, we're talking about $10,000 to $12,000. Now we're struggling, and I'll say to you who made the motion, Ms. Humphries, do the math. That this is equitable. Somebody is getting this is a step 10 on your numbers. I'm not making it up, but your numbers. Oh, excuse me, the board's numbers. So the board feels increasing somebody's salary, $10,000, $12,000, $12,000 is equitable when you're struggling to get 50 cents? That, I don't understand the logic being used here.
Again, that's the difference between having credit hours, coming in with the experience. We don't just bring in people and say, here's money, right?
I know, because it is tax dollars.
Exactly. So we bring in people based on qualifications and education, and this is the standard. We can't compare apples and oranges. And so I won't stay here and debate it. Randy, I think we should just call.
No, you don't cancel discussion.
I'm just saying.
I do
feel
want to,
like we
I
can
think it is
call
dangerous
a
for us
vote.
to pit
We can
higher
call for the
paid
vote.
versus lower paid. It's a great conversation and discussion. I do want to caution us, though, in how we frame the discussion and saying, and pitting any employee groups in terms of their range of salaries or not. I think it's a dangerous thing to do. So I do just want to caution us as we have this conversation to not try to pit any employee group against each other because of what any specific group is making. So just to throw that out there and
that's exactly what I mean, Mr. Lopez, that we have employee groups. We have an organization that is an organization. And no one's talking apples and oranges because we haven't had that conversation.
Called for the vote.
Excuse me.
I called
Point
for
of
the
order.
vote.
I'm still speaking.
I called for the
Point
vote
of order,
prior
Mr.
to
Lopez.
this discussion. I called for
Point
the vote.
of order.
Dr. Nguyen, can finish your thought,
Thank
please?
you. As I was saying, we have employee groups, and employee groups in an organization, you consider balance. And since, if you're a corporation, it's one thing, but this is an entity that's publicly funded, state-funded, taxpayers' monies. So I'll have comments later, so thank you.
All right, thank you. Great conversation, discussion. There's a motion on the floor and it's been seconded. Thank you for the discussion. I will ask Ms. Smith to go ahead and call a vote, please. Roll call.
Yolanda Clark,
Yolanda Clark, no.
Maxine Drew,
Maxine Drew, yes.
Janie Humphries,
Janie Humphries, yes.
Randy Lopez,
Randy Lopez, yes.
Wanda Brownlee Page,
Wanda Brownlee Page, no.
Dr. Nguyen,
And Mr. Lopez, I will invoke policy BCBG with an explanation of vote, please. BCBG says each board member shall have the privilege of explaining any vote. I vote no on this budget because I do not want to raise taxes on the taxpayer of Wyandotte County when throughout these entire budget workshops, the administration clearly stated that the increase in the local option budget would not result in a tax increase. Instead of using the $89 million in COVID funding to offset some of these expenditures, the majority of the board voted to raise the LOB that will result in taxing the taxpayer for an additional $1 to $2.8 million. I vote no on this budget because in the board discussion, and I have said this before, it did not follow the letter of the law concerning budget certification. House Bill 2067 requires the board to assess each school in the district and then use that information, the needs assessments, to prepare the budget to allocate sufficient funding in a manner reasonably calculated so that all students may achieve the Rose standards. When I repeatedly asked the board to do what the law requires, the majority of the members did not, but merely rubber-stamped the administration's recommendations. I vote no on this budget because when I asked the board to review the spending of approximately $40 million of at-risk funding for 2021 paying for the delivery of at-risk services, the board again did not discuss last year's spending of at-risk services, nor evaluate past spending, nor discuss the expansion of spending for 2022 of at-risk services. This is serious in my opinion because not only do 85% of our students qualify for at-risk services, 85 to 90% of our students are not proficient on state assessments, and also the 2021 laws requires the district to account for the spending on at-risk services and requires measurable outcomes. I vote no on this budget because I oppose the 8 to 16.8% administrative salary increases when the only reason given for the increase was because JOCO or KCMO pay similar salaries. Kansas Legislative Post Audit has determined that the area Johnson County districts are not our peer districts. The board was not given any hard data like exit interviews to know specifically if salary is the real problem. I provide the 2019 U.S. Census data and the May 2021 Kansas Department of Labor data to the board. I do not know if board members reviewed it or not. However, it stated that the per capita income of Waco is $22,866 compared to $47,877 in Johnson County. The unemployment rate in Wyandotte County is 5.7 compared to 3% of Johnson County. And the median household income of Wyandotte County is $46,964 compared to $91,771 for Johnson County. Once again, I don't know if the majority of the board considered the census data. It showed a more comprehensive picture comparing the two communities, but the majority of the board accepted the administrative recommendations based on undocumented statements such as exit interviews. It's important to know also that Johnson County districts receive cost of living increases in the state funding because the cost of living is higher in Johnson County. USD 500 does not receive cost of living funding. Thus, the school finance formula recognizes that the taxpayer of Wyandotte County is not even expected to pay the same wages as those in Johnson County. Then why should the majority of the board think that it's logical and the right thing to do? Just because the administrator said so? No. Finally, I vote no because 8 to 16.8 raises are grossly inequitable to most of the other salary groups, average being between 3 and 5%. While most important, unfortunately, Kansas City, Kansas employees, those who do not even make a living wage but live in Kansas City, Kansas, will have to pay the higher taxes for those who, for the most part, unfortunately, do not live in Kansas City, Kansas. Those making below $15 an hour. I vote no on this budget for these and other reasons. Thank you, Mr. President.
Mr. President, I just have to say a statement of fact. When I was going over the change for the mill levy, I stated that the change in the mill levy would not generate a tax increase, and it did not. The tax increase was due to your county assessed evaluation increasing the assessed evaluation. It did not have anything to do with changing the mill levy from the bond and interest to LOB.
And
no change.
Thank
Ms. Smith,
you.
I'll
Dr.
actually, we'll
Yeager.
finish the voting. Ms. Smith, would you please complete the vote?
Dr. Yeager, no. I would like to make a motion that we choose option 1 to approve the 75% increase.
Okay, so just want to recognize that that motion was not approved with 4 votes against, just to clarify. And there's a motion on the floor now to adopt option 1, which was presented at the 75% level. Is there a second? I will second. Are there questions or discussion? Ms.
I
Clark,
have
it looks
one.
like you have a question.
I do.
I'll call on you.
I do, and I hate to put Dr. Stubblefield on the spot. I would like to hear from you, though, just with, I know you've talked about this, and we've talked about this a lot, and everyone's really passionate about this subject, but I would like to hear from you and your thoughts on where we are and like where we should be going here.
So, to be fair to everyone, the information that administration shared with me, based off of a more long-term plan to address specific groups, I'm not sure if that was articulated, and as I stated when we had the budget workshop, my preference would have been that we would have had more of a 5-year long-term plan so that each employee group would see where it would go. I, given where we are, would support the phasing in at the 75% in addition with the additional dollars to address the other employee groups. But my plan for going forward next year would be to have more of a long-term plan to start the discussion sooner, like in the fall, to talk about how to address all of the employee groups and to address some of the other comments that were shared this evening around our overall budget, and to talk specifically around the ESSER funds and what it can and will set off, and then how to plan long-term for the sustainability, because that is one-time money. So we just, as we're allocating that, we need to really be looking at one-time expenses and or adjusting our budget to keep those things in place that will help us to make progress with our students.
Thank you, Dr. Stubblefield. Thank you.
Other questions or discussion? Ms. Page?
I respect what you just said, but I would go with option 2 if I had to go with an option. And I know it probably won't get through, but I would take 2. And I know you said we don't want to pit one group against the other. Well, this is a capitalist society, and let's be realistic about it. It's the haves and the have-nots. And I'll just leave it at that.
And I'm the one that asked the question, so I hate that I put her on the spot, but I really needed to hear more from kind of some of the inside as well, so I'll own that.
Dr. Nguyen?
And Dr. Stubblefield, with respect, when you wrote that district administrators received an email of 7/14 in answer to could it be phased in? Now, let me ask, did you answer, is this your answer or is this Randy's
Yes,
answer?
well,
Okay.
my answer was, yes, it could be, because yes, it can be, if that is the desire of the board. And I know this is a difficult topic, and I do not want to come in pitting groups against one another. And when you look at all of the recommendations and the total numbers, you can look at what the difference is for each employee group, whether it's the options down or like 75 or 50%. I just think that has to be a decision made collectively by the board on what you believe will be best for each employee groups. I will support either one of them because there are increases for each employee group. And then we will just have to adjust our long-term plan around whatever the board recommends, whether it's phasing or addressing whole groups. We are addressing the paras and aides, that entire group, this particular year, but then we'll just have to make the adjustments on the groups. But based on how the money is allocated, we'll just have to shift which groups are in the next coming years.
And I apologize, because I thought I saw it, I don't know if I did, but I had asked the question, what about the public library staff?
Yeah, so Ms. Levers did reply. They do receive raises based off of, she sent their scale, not their scale, but Ms. Levers, if you could come forward and share that. They do have their HR and their percentage increases that look like that, but they have paras, and she can talk more. So if they're in those groups, they would receive the increase if it's the same, correct?
Yeah, we have professionals and we have paraprofessionals instead of like the schools have the teachers and the classified. It's always difficult. We used to just be separate every time when there's increases or whatever. Nevertheless, a few years ago, they said, no, we all have to be in the same, and we can because of the differences between the two systems. But we, every 6 or so years, we tend to work with the metro-wide libraries and find out what the actual pay scale is, because ours goes on a scale, whereas the school has steps, which is different, and we don't, because you can have your master's in teaching and then you have credits, and we don't. You have a master's library MLS, or you just have a BA, or nothing. So it's just a scale. So that's the difference between the public libraries and the school system. But we tend to, and it's about time that we look at this, the metro-wide salary scales again, because it's been about 6 years or so. So we haven't received anything yet to show us, but we can call around and have them send. But we basically do it. The only thing that they took the directors out and put the director with the school directors, and it's completely two different directorship. You know what I'm saying? But there's nothing that we could do because that was decided upon, and there was no thought process behind this. I mean, if that answers the question, or is there anything else?
Well, just for clarity, so every 6 years, they get a raise? If I heard you correctly.
No, it depends on if the board okays for a raise, then they do get a raise, depending on if it's 2% or 1% or 3%, then everybody.
So you're talking about the library board of directors, right?
No. The library staff.
Okay, because I know we have the librarians that we have in our schools.
Yes,
I'm talking about the public library.
Yeah.
Okay.
That was my question about the
Yeah,
public.
so
Someone had
she's
asked
saying
that.
every 6 years, they look at what the market is and see where they are. But whatever percentage that you approve, they get the same percentage.
yeah,
And they're employees, but it's on their
Okay.
scale.
Because
Yeah.
I didn't, someone asked me that question.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, when you were talking, when the board was talking, well, what about us? And what about our vacation time, our pay? Do you all decide that? And I didn't know, that's why I asked the question.
Yeah, and in the school libraries fall under the school's steps.
Okay, I got that, but I was just saying the public library,
Yeah.
how do they?
Yeah.
Whatever percentage is approved here, they
Okay.
apply to their
Yeah,
scale.
we wait
Okay.
on
And
what the
their
board.
scale is not the same as our scale, and I think
Okay.
their lowest paid, I think, did you say was 12?
It's about $12.
Yes.
12, something.
Can we
So
go ahead and
whatever the
vote?
board decides, we will just follow suit and, you know, it's the board's
Okay.
direction.
Thank you, Ms. Page. Thank you. All right. Dr. Nguyen?
For purpose of discussion, I'd like to make a substitute motion for the 50%. You don't have to approve that. It trumps the,
I know,
on
that's
the
why I
table.
called for the vote, but I didn't get my say first.
no, just, I'm making a substitute motion.
So there's a substitute motion.
So we have to vote on the substitute motion first and then go back to the other motion.
Okay. Do we need a second for the substitute motion?
Second.
You know you're gonna do this.
Okay. There's a motion and a substitute motion and a second. Any clarifying questions?
So the substitute motion is for option 2 that we saw, that we were.
50%.
The
50%, okay,
For clarity, so no one's
Yes.
confused.
okay.
Okay. No other questions? Ms. Smith, roll call vote, please.
Yolanda Clark,
Yolanda Clark, no.
Maxine Drew,
Maxine Drew, no.
Janie Humphries,
Janie Humphries, no.
Randy Lopez,
Randy Lopez, no.
Wanda Brownlee Page,
Wanda Brownlee Page, yes.
Dr. Nguyen,
Dr. Nguyen, yes.
Dr. Yeager, no.
Okay.
I make a motion for what I originally proposed for option 1 to be adopted with the 75%.
That motion's still on the table, so we don't need a second.
We need a
We need a second. Okay, is there a second?
I thought you seconded.
I will second.
Oh,
I will second it.
Second.
All right. Ms. Smith, roll call vote, please.
just for clarity, you said this is for the
75%.
75, okay, thank you. Yolanda Clark,
Yolanda Clark, yes.
Maxine Drew,
Maxine Drew, yes.
Janie Humphries,
Janie Humphries, yes.
Randy Lopez,
Randy Lopez, yes.
Wanda Brownlee Page,
Wanda Brownlee Page, no.
Dr. Nguyen,
I will vote no because it still gives a 12.6% increase, no.
Dr. Yeager, yes.
Motion passes. Thank you. So we still have the 1.5 million that we need to discuss and figure out what we will do with. I will open the floor for thoughts. I will ask Mr. Covington or Dr. Stubblefield, were there any staff recommendations on that 1.5 of where you thought that could be best used? Otherwise, board members, I would open the floor for conversation.
I make a motion that we use it on salaries for our lowest paid staff.
Second,
A motion to use the 1.5 million to compensate the lowest paid staff. And a second. Are there questions, discussion? Ms. Page?
I don't have a question, but I just want to make sure we don't forget about our teachers. I'll just leave it at that.
Thank you. Other thoughts, other questions?
I'll still ask again, what does it mean? How much, 50 cents? I'll ask you, we can't talk.
Rachel, do you have that information? If you, the 1.5 plus the other 200, because then it would be
That's
1.
1.5 plus 491, so about $1.9 million.
Okay.
Right, and at that 1,000,009, we'd be looking at the lowest paid group would be moving from 1305 to 1403. And so they'd be seeing a 7.5% increase across the lowest paid positions.
Can we continue with the vote?
Okay. Thank you, Rachel. Dr. Yeager's called for the vote, so Ms. Smith, would you please roll call vote? And this, again, is to use the 1.5 plus the 400 plus thousand for those salaries compensation.
Yolanda Clark,
Yolanda Clark, yes.
Maxine Drew,
Maxine Drew, yes.
Janie Humphries,
Janie Humphries, yes.
Randy Lopez,
Randy Lopez, yes?
Wanda Brownlee Page,
Wanda Brownlee Page, yes, and I hope we don't forget our teachers. I keep saying that.
Dr. Nguyen,
Dr. Nguyen, I'm not going to vote yes for $1 raise when others will be given 5,000. So no.
Dr. Yeager, yes.
Motion passes. Thank you.
And thank you, Board. The next part of the budget process is to get the vote to publish the Form 99.
So-
I'll bring Tracy forward.
For point of process, that is currently on Agenda 11A. We will move that up to this part of the discussion since it relates to the conversation we were just having.
Point of order, do you have to have a motion for that?
Mr. Goheen, is that something we can do without a motion, or?
I mean, it does change the order of the agenda. Seems like we probably ought to keep the agenda in the same order, unless you guys want to move it by motion.
Okay.
I mean, I think technically to move the order, you'd want to modify the agenda.
We'd have to modify the agenda, okay. Okay, in that case, we will keep it in the same order. I'm sorry, Mr. Covington, we'll have to come back to that process. And we will call for a brief recess. I've been looking at my colleagues.
You can extend it's an executive session.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Actually, before the recess, thank you, we do have an executive session, so I'd entertain a motion to recess to executive session to discuss matters of non-elected personnel in order to protect the privacy interests of the parties involved in Tacoma, going in at 7:15 for 5 minutes. Can I get a motion?
So moved.
second.
Moved and seconded. Ms. Smith, roll call.
Yolanda Clark,
Yolanda Clark, yes.
Maxine Drew,
Maxine Drew, yes.
Janie Humphries,
Yes, please.
Randy Lopez,
Yes.
Wanda Brownlee Page, Dr. Nguyen,
Dr. Nguyen, yes.
Dr. Yeager.
Dr. Yeager, yes.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. into open, oh, I'm sorry. Motion to come back into open session, please. Move,
So moved.
moved and seconded. Ms. Smith, roll call, please.
I'm sorry, who was the second?
Ms. Humphries.
Okay, thank you. Yolanda Clark,
Yolanda Clark, yes.
Maxine Drew,
Maxine Drew, yes.
Janie Humphries,
Janie, yes.
Randy Lopez,
Randy, yes.
Wanda Brownlee Page,
Wanda Brownlee Page, yes.
Dr. Nguyen, Dr. Yeager.
Dr. Yeager, yes.
Thank you.
We are back in open session. Thank you. Next on the agenda is a board discussion. My computer locked up on me, but we have our KASB appointments. And as you can see on your screen, we have recommended the appointments of Dr. Nguyen, Ms. Drew, and Ms. Humphries for those positions. They served in those positions last year, so I'm recommending that they serve this year in those same positions. Would ask for a motion to accept them on for those positions.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Questions? Ms. Smith, roll call, please.
Yolanda Clark,
Yolanda Clark, yes.
Maxine Drew,
Maxine Drew, yes.
Janie Humphries,
Janie, yes.
Randy Lopez,
Randy, yes.
Wanda Brownlee Page,
Wanda Brownlee Page, yes.
Dr. Nguyen,
Dr. Nguyen, yes.
Dr. Yeager.
And Dr. Yeager, yes.
Thank you.
Motion passes. Thank you. We will continue with our agenda. Next up, Mr. Covington, Ms. Kaiser are back up to discuss the publication of notice of hearing and transfer from contingency reserve to LOB.
Yes, and our Executive Director of Finance will go over the Form 99. As you all know, this is a required document for KASB that we must publish in our board-adopted newspaper. So I will turn it over to Tracy.
Good evening, President Lopez, Vice President Clark, Dr. Stubblefield, and board members. I presented the full 145-page budget document to you last week, but I sent out this afternoon just some highlights on 4 pages of that large document. So things I just wanted to specifically point out. On the notice of hearing, which would be published in the newspaper, you can see the second line down is a supplemental general local option budget, or LOB. It goes by all those different names. And the mill levy did go up 1.161 in that fund. If you go down towards the bottom of the page, you'll see the bond and interest fund, which dropped 1.161. So that's the discussion we had several weeks ago about transferring those mills from one fund to the other. Also, on the supplemental general fund, you can see that the dollar amount goes up by about $8 million. $4 million of that is taxpayer dollars. $4 million of that is state aid that we would receive in addition. And back down to the bond and interest, sorry, they don't make this form nice for us to discuss. The bond and interest did drop by $5 million. So for the local taxpayers, they would not see a change between those. I just wanted to explain the differences. You'll see a big jump on the federal funds. That is our COVID or ESSER funds as well are included in that. And so that is the $94 million. Made a big increase in our budget.
Could I ask you, Dr. Stubblefield, could I ask her to make a reference to the number of line item
Sure.
that she is referring?
Yes, absolutely. So to the far left is the name of the fund, and then to the right of that is the code line number. So on the federal funds, it is line number 7, and you can see it went from 27 million to 94 million, and that is because it includes our ESSER funds. On line 24, I just wanted to point out food service. As you know, there was a large concern this past year when we didn't receive the revenue because we weren't serving as many meals and things like that. So with all free meals now for the 21-22 year, our revenue is looking considerably better. And so I just wanted to point out that big jump from 7 million up to 21 million to spend out that entire fund if we would need to. The gifts and grants, also, we just budget so that we have the budget authority, so we don't have to come back and ask you to republish like I had to do a few months ago. So we do not intend on spending $24 million in gifts and grants, but that just gives us the budget authority to do so if we would need to. Also, another change is under the, before that was line 35 on the gifts and grants. On line 51, Capers is going up $5 million. That's just a flow through through the state, comes to us, sits our bank account for a couple seconds and goes right back. But there is an increase there. So I just wanted to show you that as part of the total overall increase. The line 100 shows our mill levy staying the same at 49.65 for last year and this year. On the second page, you can see the library's mill levy is also staying at 11.168. Oops, this is the wrong one. The third page, this is page 61, if you were going to look in the entire big budget document. Wanted to explain the second part of our request tonight, which is to transfer $3,496,000 from contingency reserve to LOB. So the LOB, as you know, is our local tax dollars. And oftentimes the county is able to collect more dollars than what we have the legal authority to spend, and so that becomes a carryover. So as you see on that third page, I have highlighted the unencumbered cash balance, line 01. Through 2 years ago, it was 5.9 million. Last year, it dropped to 900,000, and now we're at 1.8 million. And so those carryover balances assist in not having to charge the taxpayers as much the next year. So that helps control our mill levy. So through good fiscal management, we were able to transfer 3.496 million from general fund into contingency reserve last year as part of our year-end closing for 2021. And part of our strategy was to ask you then to take that back out of contingency reserve. So contingency reserve has the same balance, but we are putting that into LOB to help control the mill levy in future years. It will not affect this year, but we'll have that carryover balance back up closer to that $5 million. So that way we can, you know, if we would need to raise the mill levy somewhere else, in bond and interest or something, we might be able to lower LOB. So it's just a tax strategy for us to put the position, put us in a little bit better position to not have to charge the taxpayers if we were, you know, able to do that. So the last page is page 121 of your entire budget document. On line 1, you can see that our contingency reserve balance in 2021 was 14.4 million, increased because of that transfer back up to the 17.9, and we would ask you to take that back out and put it into LOB as part of our tax strategy. I would answer any questions you might have.
Dr. Nguyen?
Thank you, Mr. Lopez. So what's the source of the funds in the contingency fund?
We transferred them from general fund. We had those dollars left over at the end of the year, and we're able to put them into contingency reserve.
So anything in the general fund can go into contingency fund?
Correct.
Is there a limit?
Not that I'm aware of.
I make a motion that we approve the publication of the notice of hearing and transfer from contingency reserve to LOB.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Further question,
Oh,
clarification?
I had a question.
Dr. Nguyen?
Could you help the board understand that on the actual expenditures of page 1, column 3, column 5?
Yes, the actual expenditures in column 3 on page 1, you see at the bottom it was 417 million. That was our actuals from 2021. In 21-22, in column 5 is our proposed budget. It is up significantly, as I shared, that $5 million in capers, because of the ESSER funds, because of the larger jump in food service. And then it's also the state's recommendation to always pad these funds so that we don't have to come back and republish.
To always
So,
what?
To pad them.
Pad
To make them
them?
higher. Mhm.
At a certain, you're saying KSDE tells you to pad the budget
Yes, that's typical across the state.
into what percentage?
It's just whatever you're comfortable with. It depends on the fund specifically, but just to give us the budget authority. You know, this is a document that goes to the state, the county to give us authority. What we have in Business Plus in our accounting system, that's our true budget. That's the dollars we actually receive. When we have our audit from KSDE and we know what balance we're gonna get, what amount of money we're gonna get, we adjust Business Plus. And so that's what you guys can see on the treasurer's report in all of you. That is our true budget. This is just giving us the
The
authority.
taxing authority.
Right.
So that 584 is well, Mr. Covington gave us a figure of something like 239. So the 239 of the total budget, superintendent's budget, the difference is what you've said is added to it?
Right, that wouldn't have included, in the superintendent's plan for success that he presented, that would not include our gifts and grants, our bond and interest, health insurance reserve, ESSER funds, things like that, all of our federal funds. So, he's just talking about the dollars that we have.
Right. Now, of
flexibility.
those funds, I know the 89 million is specific. And you're saying and I think your CAPERS funds specific. So where do you pad?
We increased the general fund, like I said, in gifts and grants, that 24 million. We just put that down, that's our total balance right now in gifts and grants. So we want to make sure that if we would need to spend that, we would have the authority. Capital outlay is another one that we budget the entire amount because we cannot republish that. So if we'd have a major, something major happen that our insurance doesn't cover and we needed those funds for an HVAC or something like that, that we would have the authority to spend it.
Okay. So is that the lowest, or could it be lower than 584 million?
It absolutely will be lower than that. Yes, absolutely. That is the maximum that we would be able to
Correct,
spend.
but when you publish this, you're saying to the taxpayer, I'm going to try to levy 580, taxes to receive 584 million, correct?
No, the levied funds are only supplemental general, capital outlay, general fund, which is the 20 mils required by law, and our bond and interest.
Right.
So those are the only
The
four
42
funds.
million,
Right, those are the
Correct.
only four funds that are actually taxpayer dollars.
right, and what did you get last year? What's the corresponding number to 42.2 million?
I'm sorry, I'm not
Do you
understanding
know the
your
question I'm asking?
No, I do not.
Are you
So
referring to
amount of 2021 tax to be levied is 42.294 million for 21-22. What was it for 2021?
It's right there next to it, 40992835.
That's the mill levy. What was the amount?
Isn't that the?
What line are you on, Dr. Wynn?
I'm on line 100. Amount of 2021 tax to be levied, column 6, 42.294810.
Oh.
Where's the corresponding number for amount of tax levied in 2021? Please.
If I may step away, I can get that really quickly.
Please.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Other questions or?
Did other board
discussion?
members need that number in order to go ahead for the vote? I'm not interested in what that number is. I feel like we can go ahead and vote.
That number reflects the amount of tax levied in 2021.
Right, I understand
It's part
that,
of the budget.
but
Now,
it's one board member asking for that, not all of us. So therefore, I'm asking for the vote.
We'll
Well,
give
I'd like for us to be careful with that, because if this is what we're gonna do every time if somebody has a question, and we're not gonna at least try to get the answer and go ahead and vote. I think we can wait. It's not gonna take
Well,
us
that's
that
one
long.
person, that's not all of us. We're asking one person to stop and do this when the other 6 do not require it.
I think this is a notice of a public hearing.
We'll give Ms. Kaiser just a minute to see if she can. I'm sorry. If there are any other questions or comments for Mr. Covington
No.
on this.
She got it.
Mhm.
What if she doesn't have it?
Yes.
Dr. Stubblefield, the motion is to transfer the contingency fund.
Yes.
It's been moved and seconded.
That number was 40,485,847.
40,485,845.
845.
45.
40,845,000.
845. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Covington, Ms. Kaiser, and Dr. Stubblefield.
All right. Ms. Smith, would you please roll call vote, please?
Yolanda Clark,
Yolanda Clark, yes.
Maxine Drew,
Maxine Drew, yes.
Janie Humphries,
Janie, yes.
Randy Lopez,
Randy Lopez, yes.
Wanda Brownlee Page,
Wanda Brownlee Page, yes.
Dr. Nguyen,
Dr. Nguyen, yes.
Dr. Yeager.
Dr. Yeager, yes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. We're now entertaining a motion to approve tonight's consent agenda, please.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Ms. Smith, roll call, please.
Yolanda Clark,
Yolanda Clark, yes.
Maxine Drew,
Maxine Drew, yes.
Janie Humphries,
Janie Humphries, yes.
Randy Lopez,
Randy Lopez, yes.
Wanda Brownlee Page,
Wanda Brownlee Page, yes.
Dr. Nguyen,
Dr. Nguyen, yes.
Dr. Yeager.
Dr. Yeager, yes.
Thank you.
Motion passes. Thank you. Before we go to executive session, Dr. Stubblefield, would you like to dismiss all staff that's not a part of?
Yes, so any staff that's not a part of executive session, you're free to leave. Thank you for being here.
Have a
Thank you,
good
staff,
evening.
for your work tonight. We're entertaining a motion to recess to executive session for teacher negotiations pursuant to the exception for employer-employee negotiations under the Kansas Open Meetings Act, going in at 7:40, coming out at 7:55 for 15 minutes.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Ms. Smith?
Yolanda Clark,
Yolanda Clark, yes.
Maxine Drew,
Maxine Drew, yes.
Janie Humphries,
Janie, yes.
Randy Lopez,
Yes.
Wanda Brownlee Page,
Wanda Brownlee Page, yes.
Dr. Nguyen,
Dr. Nguyen, yes.
Dr. Yeager.
Dr. Yeager, yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Motion to come back into open session.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Ms. Smith, roll call, please.
Yolanda Clark,
Yolanda Clark, yes.
Maxine Drew, Janie Humphries, Randy Lopez,
Randy, yes?
Wanda Brownlee Page,
Wanda Brownlee Page, yes.
Dr. Nguyen,
Dr. Nguyen, yes.
Dr. Yeager.
Back in open session. Motion to go back, recess back into executive session at 7:57 for 15 minutes.
So moved.
Ms. Smith?
Yolanda Clark,
Yolanda Clark, yes.
Maxine Drew, Janie Humphries, Randy Lopez,
Randy, yes?
Wanda Brownlee Page,
Wanda Brownlee Page, yes.
Dr. Nguyen, Dr. Yeager.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Come back into, I'm sorry. Motion to come back into open session, please.
So moved.
Second.
Second, or third.
Ms. Smith?
Yolanda Clark,
Yolanda Clark, yes.
Maxine Drew, Janie Humphries,
Yes.
Randy Lopez,
Yes.
Wanda Brownlee Page, Dr. Nguyen, Dr. Yeager.
Dr. Yeager, yes.
Motion to go back into executive session for 15 minutes going in at 8:15.
So move.
Second.
Ms. Smith?
Yolanda Clark,
Yolanda Clark, yes.
Maxine Drew, Janie Humphries,
Yes.
Randy Lopez,
Yes.
Wanda Brownlee Page, Dr. Nguyen,
Dr. Yeager, yes.
Thank you.
thank you.
They're saying thumbs up.
Motion to come back into open session, please.
So move.
Second.
Ms. Smith?
Yolanda Clark,
Yolanda Clark, yes.
Maxine Drew, Jamie Humphries,
Yes.
Randy Lopez.
Randy, yes.
Wanda Brownlee Page, Dr. Nguyen, Dr. Yeager.
Dr. Yeager, yes.
Motion to recess to executive session for consultation with the attorney on matters which were deemed privileged in the attorney-client relationship under COMA for going in at 8:34 for 5 minutes.
So moved.
Second.
Ms. Smith?
Yolanda Clark,
Yolanda Clark, yes.
Maxine Drew, Jamie Humphries,
Yes.
Randy Lopez.
Yes.
Wanda Brownlee Page, Dr. Nguyen, Dr. Yeager.
Dr. Yeager, yes.
Thank you. Please.
Second.
Moved and seconded to come back into open session. Ms. Smith?
Yolanda Clark,
Yolanda Clark, yes.
Maxine Drew,
Maxine Drew, yes.
Janie Humphrey,
Yes.
Randy Lopez,
Randy Lopez, yes?
Wanda Brownlee Page,
Wanda Brownlee Page, yes.
Dr. Nguyen,
Dr. Nguyen, yes.
Dr. Yeager.
Dr. Yeager, yes.
Thank you. We're back in open session. Thank you, staff. Thank you, Dr. Stubblefield. Another great, successful board meeting. Everyone have a great night. Thank you. This meeting is
Thanks.
adjourned.
Okay.